A sermon for 4th Sunday of Lent 2023. When we think of saints, we probably think of people from long ago, like St. Francis of Assisi or St. Dominic, who founded famous religious orders. But we have some new saints too, like St. Mother Teresa of Calcutta or St. Pope John Paul II. We probably saw Mother Teresa on TV or in the newspapers, and the Pope was one who came to Heaton Park in 1982, and lots of us went there. But today I want to talk about St. Frances of Rome, a married woman who died in 1440, and whose feast day is March the 9th. She was married and had 3 children, but all the children died in infancy. So she dedicated her life to the service of the poor and the sick and the dying people in Rome. Very much like Mother Teresa of Calcutta, they both did the same thing, looked after those that nobody wanted to help. I'll read you a story of her life. She could calm the anxious and pacify the angry. Her words brought enemies to reconciliation and quenched long-standing hate and bitterness. She seemed to be able to restrain the feelings of every sort of person and lead them to do whatever she wanted. The result was that people came to her from everywhere. No one went away without being comforted, even though she readily reproved and fearlessly castigated what was evil and displeasing in them. There were frequent epidemics in Rome. Some of them led to be mortal and contagious. At those times, the saint ignored the risk of contagion and did not hesitate to let her heart go out to the suffering and those in need of another's help. When she found them, she first led them by her compassion to confess their sins. Then she busied herself taking care of them, and would lovingly encourage them to accept willingly whatever sickness they had from the hand of God, and to bear it for the love of Him who bore so much for our sake. Frances was not content with looking after the sick, that she had been able to take into her own home. She sought them out in their own hovels and in the public hospitals. There she slaked their thirst, made their beds and bandaged their sores. And the filthier or more nauseating these were, the more carefully and scrupulously did she tend them. When she went to the hospital, she used to take with her food and delicacies which she gave to the most needy. When she went back home, she took with her their worn-out scraps of clothing and their poor filthy rags. These she washed and mended with care and thoroughness, as if they were to be used by the Lord Himself. Then she folded them carefully and put them away in lavender. Frances did this work of looking after the sick and those in hospital for 30 years while living with her husband. During the times of plague, it was difficult to find not only doctors to care for the body, but even priests and ministers to the soul. So she would seek out priests and lead them to such as were well disposed towards the confession and the Eucharist. To be able to do this easily, whenever she wanted, she supported a priest at her own expense. He used to go to the hospital mentioned and visit the people whose names she gave him. So there we are, we have a good example of how to be a saint from the 15th century.